There's a quiet moment before every empire breaks. No headlines, no alarms, no official announcement. Just a growing feeling among ordinary people that something is wrong. And no matter how hard they work, life keeps getting harder. That moment has appeared before every major collapse in history. And right now, it's spreading across the United States. This isn't about panic. It's not about politics. It's about patterns. Because empires don't collapse when they lose wars. They collapse when the middle class can no longer survive. And in America today, that foundation is cracking. The middle class is not just an economic group. It's the engine of stability. They work full-time. They pay most of the taxes. They buy homes. They raise families. They trust the system enough to participate in it. The poor are already struggling. The wealthy are protected. But the middle class is what keeps everything from tearing apart. And history shows something disturbing. When the middle class realizes the deal is broken, collapse accelerates fast. This is not a new story. Rome learned this lesson first. Rome didn't fall because barbarians were stronger. It fell because Roman citizens could no longer afford to live. Small landowners were crushed by taxes. Land was absorbed by elites. Citizens became renters. Then dependents. Then angry. The Roman middle class disappeared quietly. And once it was gone, nothing held the empire together. Spain repeated the mistake. In the 1500s, Spain was the richest empire on earth. Gold and silver flooded in from the Americas. But that wealth didn't build a strong middle class. It destroyed it. Inflation wiped out wages. Imports replaced local production. Work became meaningless. People realized something terrifying. Producing value mattered less than owning assets. Spain didn't collapse overnight. Its middle class died first. The empire followed. Britain made the same error centuries later. At its peak, Britain ruled a quarter of the planet. But after World War I, something broke beneath the surface. Taxes rose. Living costs exploded. Wages stagnated. People kept working harder, yet falling behind. By the time Britain realized the middle class was shrinking, the empire was already finished. And then came the Soviet Union. No invasion. No nuclear war. Just an economy that couldn't provide a normal life. 2 jobs. Empty shelves. No future. Once belief disappeared, the collapse happened fast. Different systems, different centuries, same outcome. Every time, the same warning sign appeared first. The middle class stopped being able to live with dignity. Now look at the United States. For decades, Americans were told a simple promise: work hard, play by the rules, and life will improve. That promise built the most powerful economy in history. But quietly, the math changed. Productivity kept rising. Corporate profits exploded. The economy grew, but wages stopped. Not fell. Stopped. At the same time, the cost of everything essential surged. Housing, healthcare, education, insurance. Not luxuries, necessities. Americans didn't become lazy. They didn't stop working. They worked more hours than almost any developed country on earth. And still, they fell behind. So, the system offered a substitute: debt. Credit cards replaced raises. Student loans replaced opportunity. Car loans replaced savings. Buy now, pay later replaced stability. Debt didn't build wealth. It delayed collapse. And while workers struggled, assets exploded. Homes doubled and tripled in price. Stocks soared. Wealth concentrated upward. If you already owned assets, you got richer without working. If you didn't, you were locked out permanently. The American middle class slowly transformed into renters in their own country. This is the moment history recognizes. When work no longer leads to security, when effort no longer creates progress, when the future feels smaller than the past, that's when trust collapses. People stop believing institutions. They stop believing experts. They stop believing promises. They delay families. They stop saving. They stop planning. Society doesn't break loudly. It fractures quietly. You can feel it everywhere now. Two incomes aren't enough. Rent consumes half of paychecks. Healthcare bankrupts families. Retirement feels like a fantasy. Official numbers say things are fine, but lived reality tells a different story. And history says when reality and official narratives diverge long enough, the system doesn't correct itself. It snaps. This is where America is today. Not collapsing, not doomed tomorrow, but standing in the same place every collapsing empire once stood. Right after the middle class began disappearing, what comes next is never gradual. It's not a slow decline. It's a shock. Political paralysis intensifies. Social anger rises. Currency confidence weakens. Economic resets happen suddenly. People always say it can't happen here. Rome said that. Spain said that. Britain said that. The Soviet Union said that. Every empire believes it's different. But the pattern doesn't care. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot build stability without a middle class. You cannot sustain prosperity when effort is punished. You cannot maintain belief when reality contradicts promises. History doesn't repeat because people are foolish. It repeats because systems follow incentives. And the incentives today are breaking the American middle class. Maybe reform comes. Maybe rebuilding happens. Maybe this time truly is different. But history doesn't rely on hope. It relies on patterns. And the pattern says this moment matters more than any war, election, or headline. Because once the middle class is gone, everything else follows. If you want to understand what's coming not from panic, not from propaganda, but from history itself, subscribe. The future isn't hiding. It's already written, and the past has been warning us all along. There's another thing history teaches us, and it's something most people never notice while it's happening. The middle class doesn't disappear all at once. It thins out. First, saving becomes difficult. Then it becomes impossible. Then people start spending savings just to survive. At that point, the system still looks functional from the outside. Jobs exist. Stores are full. Stock markets rise. But underneath, something critical is dying. In every empire before collapse, there was a moment when people realized they were working harder than their parents, but living worse. That realization changes behavior. People stop believing sacrifice will be rewarded. They stop thinking long-term. They stop trusting that stability is coming. And when millions of people reach that conclusion at the same time, the entire economic psychology of a nation shifts. This is exactly where the United States is today. For decades, America ran on a simple engine. Work produced income. Income produced stability. Stability produced belief. That belief allowed people to tolerate inequality, recessions, even wars. But belief is fragile. Once broken, it doesn't respond to speeches or statistics. It responds only to lived reality. And lived reality for the American middle class has been quietly deteriorating. Homes were once places to live. Now they're speculative assets. Healthcare was once a safety net. Now it's a financial landmine. Education was once a ladder. Now it's a lifelong burden. None of this happened overnight. And that's what makes it dangerous. Gradual decline feels normal until suddenly it doesn't. This is where empires make their fatal mistake. They look at the surface and say, the system still works. Markets haven't crashed. The currency still trades. The military still exists. But collapse doesn't start on the surface. It starts when incentives flip. When working harder no longer improves life. When saving no longer protects the future. When playing by the rules feels irrational. At that point, people don't rebel immediately. They withdraw. They disengage. They delay families. They avoid risk. They stop building. Society becomes stagnant. Rome experienced this. So did Spain. So did Britain. So did the Soviet Union. Different cultures. Different systems. Same human response. The United States is now seeing the same signals. Labor participation quietly weakening, entrepreneurship slowing among the middle class, young adults delaying adulthood itself. This isn't laziness. It's rational behavior in a system where effort no longer guarantees security. And once that mindset spreads, productivity falls, innovation slows, and growth becomes artificial. Debt replaces real expansion. Asset bubbles replace prosperity. Financial engineering replaces production. The economy starts consuming itself. At first, this looks like success. GDP grows, markets rise, wealth concentrates, but that concentration is a warning sign, not a victory. Because when wealth piles up at the top while the base erodes, the structure becomes unstable. History never punishes inequality alone. It punishes inequality combined with stagnation. That combination is lethal. Spain had it. Britain had it. The Soviet Union had it. And now, America has it too. The middle class isn't angry yet. That comes later. Right now, it's exhausted. Exhausted people don't revolt. They comply. They borrow. They cope. Until one day, they can't. That's when change happens fast. Not through ideology. Not through theory. Through necessity. Empires don't fall because people want chaos. They fall because the existing order becomes impossible to live under. And once that threshold is crossed, the decline accelerates beyond anyone's control. This is why history shows collapse isn't linear. It's slow, then sudden. The middle class holds the delay mechanism. As long as they can survive, the system limps forward. Once they can't, everything else follows. America hasn't crossed that final line yet, but it's closer than most people realize. And the most dangerous part? The signs are dismissed as temporary. Inflation will cool. Wages will catch up. Housing will correct. That's what every empire tells itself, right? Until the moment it doesn't. Because systems don't self-correct. Once incentives are broken, they reset, sometimes peacefully, often not. The coming years won't be defined by technology, elections, or headlines. They'll be defined by whether the American middle class can exist at all. Because when the middle disappears, history says something else always takes its place. And that replacement is never stable. If you want to understand what's actually happening, not from headlines, not from politics, but from history and patterns, subscribe.